Hello, welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why, and how of newspaper reading. Today, we are going to discuss the important issues appearing in the New Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 20th September 2019. The news to be discussed has been presented on the screen, and timestamping for the same has been provided in the description box below. So, let's start our today's discussion. And the first news appears as a lead article on page number 10. It says, Over the hills and far away. Integration of mountains with the mainstream is unlikely under a unitary dispensation that promises a green bonus. So this article highlights about the lack of integration of Himalayan regions with the rest of the country in the context of their specific needs such as political, social, economic, as well as ecological. So it is in this backdrop that these Himalayan states have demanded for a green bonus from the central government along with a separate ministry to address their specific needs. So from a prelims and mains perspective, this topic gets covered into different areas. As far as your prelims is concerned, it gets covered into Indian polity as well as general issues on environmental and ecology and also on economic and social development of the region. With respect to your mains, it gets covered under GS paper 1 and GS paper 3. In GS paper 1, specifically with respect to distribution of key natural resources along the Indian subcontinent, as well as salient features of Indian society as well as diversity of India. And in GS paper 3, it gets covered under Indian economy as well as conservation, environmental pollution and degradation with respect to environmental impact assessment. So this article says that this problem of integration of the northern mountains with the national mainstream is not only specific to India, but this problem extends to the entire mountain zone, stretching from Balochistan in the west to Chittagong Hills in the east, including the other areas which fall in between, specifically with respect to India, such as Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh, Uttarakhand, Sikkim, Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Nagaland, Manipur, as well as Mizoram. Further, the issue of integration of hill regions with their national mainstream is also faced by other countries of South Asia, such as China, Myanmar, as well as Thailand. So, in this backdrop of lack of integration of hill regions with the rest of the country, let us understand the demand for green bonus by different Himalayan states. So, in a one day conclave of these 10 Himalayan states, comprising Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Sikkim, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram, Tripura, and Meghalaya, where these states passed collectively a Mussoorie resolution pledging to make endeavors to protect and conserve the rich Himalayan heritage as well as to nurture the wealth of biodiversity prevalent in the entire Himalayan region. It was here that they also took a unanimous stand to demand green bonus or a payment for environmental services these states provide to the nation. These states also highlighted that they pay a developmental price to maintain ecology of the region, including the price to maintain forest, rivers, and other environmental goods which help the rest of the country. Further, these states also asked for help to develop their hydropower sources, subsidies for their environmental protection measures, as well as recognition of their efforts to meet human developmental parameters. And lastly, they demanded for a separate ministry to address their specific needs with respect to their region. So these states are demanding for a green bonus because such a bonus is needed to compensate these Himalayan states for their disadvantages due to hindrance of their development because large area of these land falls into eco-sensitive zones where all sorts of developmental activities cannot be carried out. Now, another reason to demand green bonus is the fact that most of the rivers of India originate in the Himalayas, and therefore these states have to play the most significant role with respect to water conservation efforts. So, it is in this backdrop that they are also demanding this green bonus. Further, the states have said that because of implementation of goods and services tax, they have suffered various losses. So these states are demanding adequate compensation which they have suffered because of implementation of GST in the region. Further, the states are also demanding green bonus with respect to payment for their ecosystem services. So, this demand for green bonus will at least help in their economic integration with the rest of the mainstream, because the central government, when they'll make policy, they'll also consider the needs and specificities of these different Himalayan states. The article further explains that even in our imagination about the social, political, and economic situations of India, the hilly areas are generally excluded. So, the norms of what an Indian village is, or how an Indian society is structured, or how its economy is backward, or in what way does its political life work, makes no reference to the specificities of the mountain regions. And, the, and these hill areas are best imagined by the national mainstream as idyllic hill stations. And these hill regions and these hill regions are best imagined by the national mainstream mostly as hill stations or with respect to some tribes living in those hilly areas. So it is in this backdrop of national imagination that even in our political discourse of policy making and formulations, the hilly regions are excluded. So, this article concludes by saying that there is a need for greater integration of these hill states along with the national mainstream. Because isolation of these hill states will not only act as a barrier for these states to integrate with the national mainstream, but will also act as a barrier for their overall development. So, there is a need for Indian mainstream as well as the central government to recognize various specificities of each Himalayan state, including their culture, customs, practices, local economy, communication, etc. And effectively, the central government must make suitable policies for their overall development and integration with the rest of the country. Now, after our discussion, this forms your practice question for the day. It says, why have Himalayan states of India demanded for green bonus from the central government? Will granting green bonus help in social, political, and economic integration of the hill states with the national mainstream? Give reasons for your answer. I hope after our discussion you will be able to write this particular question. The next article appears on page number 11. It says, being mindful of diversity. There is no congruence between Amit Shah's desired outcome and the incentives to learn Hindi. So this article has been written in the backdrop of recent statement given by Home Minister with respect to imposition of Hindi as a national language. So this topic falls under GS paper 2 as well as GS paper 1. In GS paper 1, it gets covered under salient features of Indian society as well as diversity of India, and GS paper 2 with respect to Indian constitution and its important features. Now as you can see, article 343 of the Indian constitution forms part of part 17, which states about official language. So it says that the official language of the union shall be Hindi in Devanagari script. So Hindi, as we understand, is a official language of India and not a national language. With respect to English, this article further states that for a period of 15 years from the commencement of the constitution, English language shall be used for all official purposes of the union. It further states that Parliament may by law provide for the use of English language as well as Devanagari form of numerals even after 15 years from the commencement of the constitution. So in this backdrop of official language, let us go through the important aspects as provided in this particular article. Now this article basically highlights the opposition of Hindi by the southern states. Now the southern India are mostly Dravidian language speakers, whereas in North India mostly Hindi is spoken, and Hindi belongs to the group of Indo-European languages. It is believed that Indo-European language speakers are the most recent migrants into the subcontinent. So this article effectively highlights that there is no need for a common language, that is Hindi, to feel connected, because Indians already feel connected because of a shared common history running into several thousand years. So this article mentions that there is no need to get confined to a common language in order to feel connected. And in this aspect, it has quoted the example of Ashokan edicts. Now, King Ashoka of the Mauryan dynasty, in order to unify his large kingdom, used Ashokan edicts to propagate his ideals. Now, these edicts were in different languages as per the requirement of the local culture. So, even Ashoka was not held to the chains of language as he understood that it was more important to propagate his ideals rather than to propagate a common language. So, in the east, the information on the Ashokan edicts were in the Magadhi language, in the west, it was in the Sanskrit language, and Ashokan edicts in Afghanistan used bilingual languages, that of Aramaic and Greek. So, quoting the example of King Ashoka, the article highlights that for national integration, a common language is not required. What is more important is common ideals on which the nation develops. So, effectively, the article concludes by saying that in the present model world, internet is more required for national integration rather than forcefulness of a particular language. The next news appears on page number 11. This news is in the form of an interview of GN Devi and Yogendra Yadav, and the topic is Can Hindi Unite India? And in this interview, both these authors have expressed their own opinion with respect to unity of India through the Hindi language. In your prelims examination, this topic gets covered under Indian polity, and in your mains gets covered under GS paper 2 as well as GS paper 1. Now, these are the different dimensions which have been discussed in this particular interview. These dimensions are connection of Hindi with India, unity by one language, how much it is feasible. They've also quoted the census figure to find out how much percentage of the population speaks Hindi. They've also mentioned about 8th schedule and why only Hindi has been picked among the different languages as provided in 8th schedule. Further, they have discussed about the issue of migration, failure of three language formula, and also with respect to disappearance of many tribal language which the authors have identified as a great cultural loss. Now this interview highlights that one nation, one language and one culture is a 19th century European idea that failed to create unity. And instead, it caused a lot of bloodshed in the entire world. So in this backdrop, a multilingual country like India should not follow into the footsteps of one nation, one language, and one culture, as it has the potential to break the nation into pieces. So, this idea of one nation, one language was mostly of the colonized world where they could not think beyond one language. And this idea is not tuned with our Indian history, culture, and civilization, as India is a multilingual country. Now, 2011 census has listed 1,369 mother tongues in the country, and Hindi is only one among the languages. Further, the 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution provides for 22 languages including Hindi, so it is not fair to only pick up Hindi as a language for national unity. So we can say that Hindi alone does not connect the entire country, as it is the Constitution of India which actually connects the entire nation. And Article 1 of the Indian Constitution specifically says that India, that is Bharat, shall be a union of states and union territory. Apart from the Constitution, what binds us is our shared history, including some epoch making phenomena such as Jainism, Buddhism, Bhakti movement, as well as our national freedom struggle. These are the things which connects and inspire India as a one nation and not only one particular language, namely Hindi. So it is in this aspect the interviewers have said that the government should not interfere with the linguistic behavior or choices of people. Now with respect to migration, the authors have highlighted that today nearly 35% of people are migrating daily for their work to different states. And in such a situation, we have to conceptualize a new form of language identity for our states. So, in this aspect, our cities must be recognized as multilingual entities because of different citizens who have came from different states. So, in this aspect, the interviews have highlighted that imposition of any state language in a particular state will effectively prevent the growth of other languages which are spoken by these people coming from different parts of the country. And this imposition of any state language will also bring down migration, and this will effectively lead to economic loss to that particular state. So, in this aspect, any linked language of the country, either Hindi or English, will prove economically harmful or disastrous for the country because effectively it will also lead to reduction in migration. Now, this interview also highlights the need for rethinking or restructuring the three language formula as suggested by the Kothari Commission. So, it mentioned that for a child, initial language for instruction must be in their mother tongue, and such language of mother tongue must be used in primary education. However, we see that now English is thrusted upon children, and this also at times does not lead to their proper cognitive development. Because when a child learns certain language in their mother tongue and then a different language is imposed on the child, then their ability to understand and differentiate the different languages become difficult, and hence their cognitive abilities also reduces. So the authors argue that imposition of English on a child whose mother tongue is not English reduces their cognitive ability to differentiate between different world languages and to create a worldview or to create an opinion. So imposition of any language including English which is not the mother language of the child reduces their cognitive ability to develop in a natural way. The three language formula then provided that gradually the child must be shifted to state's official language such as Marathi, Gujarati or Bengali. And English could be taught from the beginning but not as a medium of instruction. Now another important aspect of the three language formula was that Hindi must be introduced in non-Hindi speaking states and Hindi speaking state should have introduced non-Hindi languages. Now, the three language formula could not be worked out because even though the non Hindi speaking states did introduce Hindi as a third language, but the Hindi speaking states did not introduce Telugu, Tamil, or Malayalam as a third language. Rather, they introduced Sanskrit as the third language. Now, another reason why the three language formula was sabotaged because elites of the country started shifting their children to English only education. So effectively, as of now, the three language formula exists only on paper. Now, another important aspect highlighted in this interview is with respect to disappearance of many tribal languages. The interviewers have said that many tribal languages are rapidly disappearing. And this is because there is not enough livelihood opportunities in these languages, and livelihood possibilities for tribals are also diminishing. So, these languages are not encouraged and people are slowly getting assimilated into different languages. So, the interviewers have highlighted that disappearances of many tribal language is not only a cultural loss but also a economic loss. The interviews further highlight that so far the government has not monetized any of the Indian language and the results might be shocking if we do so. Further, India is gifted with 10% of world's language. That is, of all the languages spoken in the world, 10% of the languages of the world are spoken in India. So, a country like India, which is rich in language diversity, should not be imposed with only one particular language, as it will lead to death of many other languages over a period of years. So, effectively, there is a need to preserve all the languages in the country and not to overemphasize on only one particular language. So, after our discussion, this forms your practice question for mains. It says there is a need to preserve the rich linguistic diversity in India rather than promoting one particular language for national integration. Comment. I hope after understanding the last two articles on imposition of Hindi as a national language, you will be able to attempt questions based on critical analysis of imposition of Hindi as a national language. With this, let's move on to our next news discussion. The next news appears on page number 9. It says, India unlikely to meet Poshan Abhiyan targets as per the study. It says that the desired rate of improvement under the program is aspirational. So, a new study published in Lancet India has said that India is unlikely to meet its target under the National Nutrition Mission or Poshan Abhiyan. So, the target under Poshan Abhiyan was to reduce stunting, underweight, and low birth weight by 2% per year by the year 2022, and also to reduce anemia among young children, adolescents, and women by 3% per year by the year 2022. Another ambitious target was to reduce stunting by 25% by the year 2022. So in this analysis, first of all, let us understand the basics of Poshan Abhiyan and also the findings of the Lancet study. Now, in your prelims, this topic forms a part of social development and social sector initiatives, and in your mains gets covered under GS paper 2, specifically with respect to welfare schemes for the vulnerable sections of the population, issues relating to health, as well as issues relating to poverty and hunger. Now, under the National Nutrition Mission or Poshan Abhiyan, the aim of the government is to reduce level of stunting in children from 0 to 6 years, to reduce undernutrition or underweight in children, and also to reduce anemia among young children, adolescents, as well as women. Now, stunting is defined as percentage of children from 0 to 59 months whose height is less as compared to their age. So, stunting is basically caused due to inadequate nutrition, and its impact are irreversible. Further, it says that stunting has long term effects on children, including diminished cognitive and physical development, reduced productive capacity, and poor health. Further, stunted children also has an increased risk of becoming overweight or obese later in their life. So, these are the aspects with respect to stunting. So, under the Poshan Abhiyan, the government aims to monitor and supervise nutrition related interventions across different ministries. Further, it proposes to introduce a mechanism for robust convergence of schemes by mapping different schemes related with addressing malnutrition. So, effectively, it has converged various programs like Anganwadi services, Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana, Scheme for Adolescent Girls, Janni Suraksha Yojana, National Health Mission, Swachh Bharat Mission, Public Distribution Systems, etc. Other initiatives under Poshan Abhiyan includes real-time monitoring of program implementation, introducing measurement of children's height at Anganwadi centers, incentivizing states to meet Poshan Abhiyan targets, involving masses through Jan Andolan, incentivizing Anganwadi workers to use IT tools, setting up Nutrition Resource Center. So effectively, Poshan Abhiyan is India's flagship program to improve nutritional outcomes for children, adolescents, pregnant women, and lactating mothers by leveraging technology and also by a targeted approach and convergence of schemes. And it was launched in 2018 by the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi. So, after understanding the basics of National Nutrition Mission or Poshan Abhiyan, let us go through the finding of the Lancet study, which has said that India is unlikely to meet its target under this particular Poshan Abhiyan. Now, the study published by Lancet has said that India will not meet its ambitious target of Poshan Abhiyan for reduction in prevalence of stunting, reduction in prevalence of underweight, low birth weight, and also reduction in anemia by the year 2022 if there is no progress made to improve the rate of decline which was observed between these years from 1990 to 2017. Now, the target was to reduce stunting by 25% by the year 2022. However, the report suggests that India will miss this target by 9.6%. The target to reduce underweight was 22.7% by the year 2022. However, this will be missed by 4.8%. Now, the target to reduce low birth level was 11.4%, and this will be missed by 8.9%. Further, the target to reduce anemia by 2022 in women was 39.4% and in children was ambitious 44.7%. Now, this target with respect to women will be missed by 13.8%, and the target to reduce anemia among children by 2022 will be missed by 11.7%. Additional efforts over the last 2 years in Poshan Abhiyan as well as Swachh Bharat Abhiyan has shown improvement. However, the gaps are still there as per the study, and more of these efforts are needed in different states to reach the targets set by the government. Now, with respect to Poshan Abhiyan, the Government of India and UNICEF has jointly signed the Country Program 2018-22, and this was signed in January 2018. So, under this agreement, UNICEF will provide technical support to the Ministry of Women and Child Development for Poshan Abhiyan under the Country Program 2018-22, and the UNICEF will also support in the following matters such as designing of all guidelines, preparing posters and hoardings, preparation of audio visual, preparation and designing of Jan Andolan guidelines, as well as preparation of dashboard or Google link for Jan Andolan. So with respect to Poshan Abhiyan, you must also know about Country Program 2018-22 which the Government of India has signed with UNICEF. The next news appears on page number 1. It says access to internet is a basic right as per Kerala High Court. The Kerala High Court in a judgment has said that right to have access to internet is part of fundamental right to education as well as right to privacy under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. Now in your prelims, this topic forms a part of Indian polity and governance, and in your mains gets covered under GS paper 2 under features of Indian Constitution. A student in the College of Kozhikode was expelled for using mobile phone during restricted hours. So she filed a petition challenging her expulsion for not adhering to the restriction on use of mobile phones. In her petition, she contended that the use of mobile phones amounted to a violation of her fundamental rights to freedom of speech and expression under Article 19(1)(a). She further stated that access to mobile phones or laptops having an internet connection provided an avenue for the students to gather knowledge, and the college authorities had no right to deny any student their fundamental right with respect to gathering knowledge. So based on the argument, the Kerala High Court held that right to have access to the internet is a part of fundamental right to education as well as right to privacy under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. Further, the Kerala High Court also cited Human Rights Council. In its judgment, it stated that the United Nations Human Rights Council have also found right of access to internet is a fundamental freedom and a tool to ensure right to education. So in this pretext, any instruction by the college authorities saying that students cannot use mobile phones cannot be justified in the eyes of law. So in this aspect, the Kerala High Court observed that the action of college authorities infringed the fundamental freedom as well as privacy, and this would have adversely affected the future and career of students who wanted to acquire knowledge and compete with their peers. So restriction on mobile phone by college authorities cannot be permitted to be enforced. The court also acknowledged that students studying in colleges are adults and are capable of taking their own decision as to how and when to study with the use of or through the access of internet. So in all these backdrop, this particular judgment of Kerala High Court, which says that access to internet is a basic right involving Article 21 with respect to fundamental right to education and right to privacy, becomes significant. The next news appears on page number 1. It says Keeladi findings traceable to 6th century BCE as per the report. Carbon dating suggests that the cultural deposits may be 300 years older than what was earlier believed. The Tamil Nadu Archaeological Department has stated that the cultural deposits unearthed during excavations at Keeladi in Shivganga district in Tamil Nadu can be safely dated to a period between 6th century BC and between 1st century CE. So this excavation at Keeladi has placed the artifacts about 300 years earlier than what was previously believed. So the study suggests that the second urbanization in the Vagai plains in Tamil Nadu occurred around 6th century BCE. The first urbanization in Indian history is referred to Indus Valley civilization. So the findings have pushed the Tamil brahmiscript to another 100 years, that is from 5th century to 6th century BCE. So these excavations clearly ascertain that the people around the region attained literacy or learned the art of writing as early as 6th century BCE. Further, these findings suggest that the society in Keeladi had used animals predominantly for agricultural purposes. These excavations also attested to various stages of weaving industry from spinning, yarning, looming and weaving, and also for dyeing in the later ages. So this excavation at Keeladi can be a major turnaround in the Sangam literature, and it dates back the Sangam literature 100 years behind. That is from 5th century BCE to 6th century BCE. Now this topic in your prelims examination forms a part of Indian history and culture. Now after our discussion, these forms your practice question for the day. What you can do is to take a pause of 5 seconds. First, which of the following can be said to be the reason for demand of green bonus by Himalayan states from the central government? Options are: first, to compensate for their geographical disadvantages. Yes, this is correct. Second, payment of ecosystem services. Yes. Lack of developmental activities. Yes. Compensate GST loss. Yes, this is also correct. So in this, the correct answer is D, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Second question says, who among the following had first deciphered the edicts of Emperor Ashoka? Now this question was asked in UPSC of 2016. Options were George Buller, James Prinsep, Max Muller and William Jones. In this, the correct answer is B, that is James Prinsep. Question number 3. Consider the following statements about Poshan Abhiyan. First, it aims to reduce level of stunting, low birth weight and underweight in children. Yes, the statement is correct. Second, it aims to reduce anemia in children, adolescents and women. Yes, this statement is also correct. Third, it aims to convert schemes related to malnutrition. Yes, this statement is also correct. So in this, the correct answer is D, that is 1, 2, 3 and 4. Question number 4. Which of the following rivers flow through Tamil Nadu? Options are Vaigai, Narmada and Kaveri. Here Narmada does not flow through Tamil Nadu and Vaigai and Kaveri flows through Tamil Nadu. So the correct answer is B, that is 1 and 3 only. With this, we come to an end to discussion of today's newspaper. Let's move on to the question for the day.